Hello, good morning everyone. Welcome to this live stream from SINTEF, Forskningsveien in Oslo. I'm really sorry about the delay, since we also run into network problems from time to time. My name is Anders Bryni. I'm heading our strategic initiative on artificial intelligence called AI at SINTEF. And I'm guessing that you are as fascinated by me when you see a computer program called AlphaGo being the best Go players in the world. And when I can go into the kitchen and my Google Home Assistant help me speak French, or when I can read an article in The Guardian that is written by OpenAI's text-generating algorithm. And all these things, even if it's a lot of hype in AI, it makes us wonder what skills are still uniquely human. But despite all these technical marvels, when we talk about what AI really is and what it can do, and what kind of use cases we're looking at, both from a practical point of view, but also from a business point of view, looking at the value. We tend to look at things like, how can we win a few more customers? How can we keep existing ones? How can we turn up operations a little bit, making it a little bit more efficient? So all these things are relatively mundane. But today we're trying to switch gears a little bit, because we do see radical change in how markets are operating. We see that markets across the globe, it needs to become more sustainable. And we have a pandemic on our hands. It's virtually wiping out demand in some markets. And you see Norwegian companies meeting global competition that dramatically alters the business reality. So what we're trying to look at today is where can we find value? Because Norway has a long and proud tradition in utilizing natural resources as a comparative advantage. And we don't only sell the resources, we also build ecosystems of value around it. We have a lot of hydrocarbons, but we don't only sell oil and gas. We build a supplier industry that provides a variety of systems and solutions. We have an abundance of clean electric energy, but we don't only sell the electricity, we build stuff like a world-class process industry. And the fjords, they fed our people for generations. But today, through cultivation and through industrialization, they're feeding people across the globe. In all of these areas, technological progress, all the way from steam engines to computers, have been key enablers. Let us do stuff like create value, unlock value, solve problems, and scale globally. And if you look at studies like Digital 21, they point exactly to AI and machine learning as key technology enablers in the digital area. And in Norway, we have significant scientific communities on AI. In some domains, we have an abundance of data. And we have companies, we have a population that is open to digitalization. So it's a lot of potential, but at the same time, we also face some challenges. Because ships today, they're normally not built in Norway, and they're normally not operated by Norwegian crew. And if you look at wind farms, hydropower, and fish farms, they create a lot of outrage due to their impact on the local ecosystems. And look at oil and gas. They need to cope with the dramatic effects of climate change. So the topic for today is if and how artificial intelligence can help us to create dramatically new business value. And well, I don't have an answer to how to do that in a good way. It's a journey that we need to go together. The things that we'll need to learn together to build a society that is both sustainable and that is worth living in. So to help us understand this topic a little bit better, I'm happy to introduce some friends of SINTEF. It's people that I respect, it's people that inspire me, and they will help us shed some light on these topics. So, come on over here. Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you guys here. So let's start off with sort of a little bit of an introduction so everyone can get to know one another. So Lars, would you start out?
Yes, my name is Lars Horn. I work in Skanska Digital, which is an internal accelerator in Skanska Norway. I'm also the initiator and project manager for a research project we have together with SINTEF, among others, a data-driven site. I'm a firm believer that data-driven decisions are the future.
Very good. And Paula, You're sort of representing a success story.
Yes. Well, I'd like to be humble, but yes, I think and in terms like in terms of a Norwegian global context as well, I think. So my name is Paula Doyle. I'm head of sales and marketing at Cognite. Cognite is a Norwegian started software company that is pretty much global now. And what we are doing is we're delivering software that enables the transformation of industry. So to enable industry to become data-driven, to take data-driven decisions and operations, enabling it to be more productive, more efficient, and of course more sustainable. And this is something that I'm extremely passionate about, so I feel very fortunate to work with a topic that I care so deeply for.
Very good, very good. So you said you're sort of coming from a startup situation, and Sondre, you know quite a bit about startups, I think.
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Sondre, for those of you who don't know me, and I work at Startup Lab, which is one of Norway's largest tech incubators, where I lead our initiative within AI, namely our data science lab, where our goal is kind of to help foster the new generation of Norwegian startups within AI. That's kind of the short introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good. And Eirik, you represent some companies that are not necessarily startups, right?
No, probably quite the opposite of startups. It's more the established industries, and particularly the established small and medium-sized enterprises that sort of covers the whole country. So what we do in Digital Norway is actually to sort of help small and medium-sized enterprises, both their employees, their companies, to understand what it actually takes to apply technology in their businesses. And by doing that, we sort of learn a lot about what their pains are and what their gains are and what they're challenged to do. And we sort of try to also convey that message to research institutes and to authorities. So that's what we do.
Very good. Super. So we have a couple of topics lined up for today's talk. And first, I'd like to start talking about where do we see AI sort of having the most meaningful applications today. So, Eirik, from what Digital Norway sees, from what you see, where do you feel that sort of AI is really sort of pulling it off in Norway?
Maybe pull off, actually sort of push it. But I see that there is a lot of curiosity in almost any business where we go in and work with the companies. We see that people are eager to learn, but they are uncertain about how to apply, what it does to them, what knowledge they kind of need to sort of be successful in that. So I won't say that AI has taken off and machine learning hasn't taken off, sort of when you look at the small and medium-sized enterprises, simply because it's too much uncertainties. It's uncertainties of how much it costs, what it will imply, what kind of consequences it will have. So you see those that have started to explore on it.
But Eirik, is this also a case of needing to like upskill people so that they have the ability to make the decisions?
Absolutely. But there are two things with this. One is to upskill people to sort of understand the opportunities and the possibilities. But you also have to remember that most of these companies, they have sort of one job, which is they manufacture or they deliver a service. A lot of the things we're talking about here, they require sort of a different way of work. You sort of have to be more innovative, you have to sort of explore new ideas, and you have to do this while you're actually in production.
But do you feel when you meet those companies that they have heard about machine learning or AI and they just, we need to talk to someone, or do you feel that they have a case and we see that machine learning might be application to solve the case?
Yeah, or they don't even know maybe.
Some of them do have a case, and some of them have really good cases.
Yeah.
Super interesting cases that I sort of would very much like to bring forward to research or to universities or to wider application.
But this is a little bit different for startups, right? Because startups either they choose to sort of be fully digitally born, do like the whole AI ML data thing, or they decide to go down another path, right?
I mean, what we see at least is that startups have the luxury of being able to focus, right? And then they often focus on new things, and a lot of the startups that are starting now are within the kind of the AI space, you would say. So it's very inspiring to see how many new companies are created, but it's also the fact that you need to have a buyer side, which is kind of the large corporations.
Yeah.
Precisely.
And we talked about it just before you came in, Anders, in terms of kind of how is, for instance, Skanska able to buy these services, and where are kind of our ecosystem regarding this?
Because I think, like, or at least what I see is, what we don't want to do is end up in another AI winter, you know, like an industrial AI winter, because it's been hyped so much and yet people can't figure out a way to practically use it. And I think that's really like, or at least that's what we see is an industry littered with proof of concepts that are technology driven, not value driven. And I think a challenge we have in industry as well is really related to, you know, industry is old. Like, you work with companies that must be like 150 plus years old. They didn't build their systems thinking of the time when we could actually capitalize and monetize data. So the whole data foundation, that's so easy to tackle, like on the internet of Google, you know, it's like a couple of data sources or finance, and then you go to an industrial site and it's, you know, tens if not hundreds of operating systems, and it's very difficult to connect. So it's kind of moving then from this proof of concept, technology driven, into something that's value driven and that you can scale. And here I think is that this is what will take us to the AI spring and summer and not give us in the winter.
Hopefully, but I'm so afraid in the company to bring like a project or idea. Just look at this machine learning. We can solve everything, and then it doesn't solve anything.
Yes.
Like normally, I feel also in other companies that they scope out too big.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying, like some of the projects we have, to keep them a little bit under the table before like we show the results, because to like do a $10 million project and you say it's normally more slippery in the winter.
You know, this is so true, and you see this like especially because AI and industry, you know, when you have like AI and it's data driven and we can figure this out just with the data, and then you go to industry and it's actually, you know, it's built on experience, it's built on physics, it's built on chemistry, and you need to combine both of these approaches.
And I think you also, when you get to most companies, they don't want AI.
No, they want outcomes.
I mean, they want to have some results, some outcome. They want to improve their efficiency. They want to improve the value of the services they provide to their clients. They want to improve their top line or their bottom. That's what they want. Whether AI plays a part of that or not, I don't really think they sort of have that too high on their agenda.
And I think that the stuff you're discussing now, it highlights some of the challenges, right? Because I asked you to come up with some concrete examples of where it really provides value. And it is a little bit challenging, right? Because AI is very often part of solutions in some respect. It's not the only solution in itself, right? So I don't know. Does anyone have like a concrete example of stuff that you're working with?
We were quite early collaborating with Spacemaker, which is probably a spin-off. Some guys from SINTEF also in that team. I think actually with Spacemaker we were too early.
Okay.
Yeah, because they had a very promising solution, and what we want to achieve wasn't possible on that solution. And then the management saw it, but where I see it now, it's very promising. But some parts of Skanska Norway uses Spacemaker, and Skanska Sweden uses it, and I think that's like a typical case for AI. A lot of variables, a lot of data, and the data is there. People can't do as many iterations. The computer is very good at doing those iterations. It's just like, I think that's an easy case to see that.
But to
AI
follow up on that, Lars, wasn't that a great way for you as Skanska to learn more about this technology?
That was my saying also, but management, I think they saw that we used a lot of money and we didn't get anything back, but Spacemaker got a lot back, so that's good. But
because we have a kind of a similar example at Startup Lab where we had a young student, Arash, coming into us, sitting as us, and wanted to create a chatbot company. And we had DNB on the other side, wanted to buy the technology, but didn't have any knowledge of how would it apply to us, what is important for us in this technology, how can we figure this out, how can we become a good buyer of this technology. And what they actually did was that they made a project where Arash got the funding to build his first prototype. In that progress, DNB learned everything they needed to know, what was important for them. He got to build his first prototype and showcasing what he could do. Unfortunately for him, they didn't buy his services. They bought from another vendor. But in the end, he now has a company called Kinley. They are more than 40 employees, and it's kind of it's a way of building new technology companies from Norway. And it's such a good way where corporate learn and you create new.
I think there is also a very good example with, for instance, Java, and the way they have sort of transformed the business of selling fertilizers to actually maximizing the yield or the outcome for the farmer. Now, the farmer doesn't have to know a lot about AI or artificial intelligence or machine learning, but Java does. So instead of actually selling the fertilizers, you sort of take measurements and you sort of position the fertilizers down to very microscopic levels. So you ensure that you actually have a very rich soil that maximizes crop production, which is what the farmer wants. He doesn't want AI and he doesn't want fertilizers. He wants to maximize his crops.
And I totally agree with you, and I think this is what we see in industry as well. So I mean, some of the applications that we're working with that we kind of really developed with the kind of local Norwegian companies around removing chemicals, removing the whole natural resources needed in the process, improving the efficiency, improving the sustainability, improving the use of energy. These are huge topics that you can really deliver on with AI. I say AI, but really we are looking at kind of a narrow AI in our application in industry. It's really machine learning and actually hybrid AI as well, where we take in the physics models into the data-driven approach. And I think that it's very important when we talked about timing as well, to time it in the right way, because I also think when you talk about AI, people think of this like floating, glowing brain. But the actual reality is it's like you get the best out with statistics and physics models and applying it to, and I think that the challenges in industry, sustainability, energy efficiency, productivity, and also how can Norway compete on a global setting in an industrial context. It's really important to kind of to really embrace it, to focus and to really deliver concrete cases.
And I think that's a nice segue into our next topic, because as I said in my introduction, we see that there are some, we've built Norway on sort of these big foundations where we have some comparative advantage from sort of long before. But today we see a lot of challenges, and it's unclear whether, for example, the oil and gas industry can be a huge part of our economy, like 5, 10, 15 years down the line, right? So where can we see that we can combine such technologies with either new or existing areas where Norway does business to grow radically new things? I know, like you, Lars, you're touching quite a lot on sustainability, right? In Skanska. Are there anything like in construction, sustainability, AI technology space that's...
Yeah, I think it's quite, if you look at the construction business, and you see that when AI came up as a buzzword in the hype cycle, they said that AI will replace dull, distance and dangerous work. If you look at what Skanska does, it's dull, distance. A lot of what we do, at least. But also another focus when we're looking at digital application is the environment, and that's why we started this research project, because we see that the efficiency on our machines is too low. It's still industry leading in Norway, but when you go to a project we deliver now, it was delivered before time, it was have a healthy bottom line, but it's still 50% idling time on the machines. 200 machines spanned over 25 kilometers. You can't get that optimum with people running around with walkie-talkies. It will be very good, but it's still something you can optimize, and that's the research project where we're looking at using machine learning algorithms to learn what's good progress, or how you should build the road efficiently, and the optimization part afterwards to route everything. And that was the initiative started to reduce emissions Yeah, we want to reduce emissions, but if we reduce emissions, we also increase revenue or
Yeah.
bottom line. So it's like a
Win-win.
win-win.
That's cool.
Like Kinder egg.
But isn't it so important to identify the areas that are better served by machines and by machine learning
Yeah.
and by robotics,
Yeah.
etc., and then really kind of focus the human creativity on the big picture,
Yeah.
like the creative, the innovative, like how do you make those big step changes?
I think the most important thing for me, at least, is to educate the management of the possibilities, not to lead the projects.
Yeah.
Because when they see the possibilities, it's easier to get a successful project going or
Yeah.
buy new technology or.
I agree.
Yeah.
We've seen that as well. So
Yeah.
having top level support is really key for companies that want to succeed with digital and with AI.
It was interesting to see Røkke at the Pareto conference last
Yeah.
week, and he sort of, well, obviously he talked about wind and carbon capture,
Yeah.
but also about you guys. I mean, seeing
Yeah.
that as like a jewel in the portfolio.
And you know what what I love about Aker is I feel like that they are really living and executing in this kind of transformation that we're in, you know, the energy transformation and their focus on offshore while maintaining their oil and gas stronghold, which I think is really important and is going to continue for a while. There's no doubt about that. But the investments in offshore wind and in carbon capture, you know, and this is really building on the Norwegian heritage. So like the Norwegian experience, like fantastic experience in large capital offshore projects. How do you take that and apply this into the new world with energy transition and with the focus on sustainability? But also I think what Aker has been really great at is embracing digital technology. I think when you listen to Kjell and Øyvind talk about their vision and I think it's one thing to have a vision, it's another thing to execute on it. So it's the combination of vision and execution and the application of digital into, and it's not just into the Aker portfolio companies, but like how to create a company and like Cognite, you know, started in Norway and then taking this technology, this Norwegian industrial technology out to the world. I think this is really cool, I think is the only word for it.
And it's something that we can possibly live of in like a long time. Right?
Precisely, and it builds on this really strong foundation, you know, and I think the technical innovation as well that you see in Norway and you see like facilitated by Startup Lab and others, to combine that with the experience in physics simulators development and in Algo is developed here, you know, this fantastic technology, plus the large capital projects, the offshore experience. Norway is in a very unique position globally, and then combined with the society that is very quite open and trusting, I think it's the time is now to capitalize on that.
So do you have any new Cognites?
New Cognites? A lot of them.
Good.
No, but I think, I mean, Cognite is kind of the forefront in kind of the data liberation stuff, and I kind of see that we've been through two different phases. The first phase was more of big companies wanting to open their data, and if they were able to open their data, they were going to have a lot of companies coming and building value-adding services on top, which didn't to that extent happen. And we came into kind of the second wave, which is more, we actually need to think about data quality, and not only data quality, but we also need to have captured the knowledge about the data, at least in Norway, which is such a B2B heavy industry focus. So I think now is more the time when we kind of have figure out all these small puzzles which we didn't know in the beginning, where it was more of a, if you apply some machine learning, it will do some magic stuff. It will find patterns you didn't even know existed. But now we have kind of started to figure out how it should be, and we are able to kind of more accurately produce good pilots who demonstrates the value in another way than before.
And I think you're absolutely right. Like, to succeed at AI, you have to solve the data problem, and which is our focus as well. Because if you don't do that, you cannot succeed at scale. And I think to be world class in that is going to be key. But that is a core foundation for any kind of large scale ML or AI or even just data driven operations environment.
So maybe we need to focus on those areas where we have a lot of data. For instance, in oil and gas, as you were mentioning, but also in process industries.
Yes.
I think Norwegian process industries has come extremely far in applying advanced technologies to improve performance and improve the quality of the work, and also improve the safety of in the workplace itself. So I think process industries are really interesting. I mean, everything with this sort of heavy industry, which is resource intensive. We have a lot of energy in this country, and it's clean,
Yes.
green energy.
Yes.
So I think we need to utilize that more effectively than we already do. And when you talk about data, we have a couple of industries in Norway where we have huge amounts of data. Agriculture, process industries, oil and gas, maritime.
Power and utilities.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Aquaculture.
Yes.
So utilize that data to actually improve the performance of these companies, and also make the job of working in those companies even more fun.
Yeah. And we do talk a lot about oil and gas, but what we see is that, like you say, this is an industrial problem, and the companies that we work with in the utility space, in the power gen space, in the manufacturing space, and both discrete and process as well. We're working with the Norwegian company Orbaka on the west coast, and what they are doing now, like to enabling data-driven operations, the efficiencies that they're gaining from that, the vision they have, it's really powerful. So there's huge opportunity there.
I mean, that's super cool, but moving on to the third topic here, and you touched on it already, what kind of changes do we need to bring to make this happen and to realize this value? Because obviously it's challenging, right? You talk about hybrid analytics, you need to know like physics models, data-driven models, you need to sort out data with quality, metadata, all this stuff. It's not easy for Skanska, and it's not easy for an SME, right? It's challenging stuff. So where do we need to focus? Do we need to focus on bundling things to sort of getting more ready-cooked solutions? Do we need to raise competency? Where do we start?
For us, I think we need to start like educating people that data isn't dangerous, because the first thing I meet when I have an ID or data is that privacy matters.
Yeah.
Can we look into this data? Oh, they're going to use it to see if I did a poor performance. No, we're going to use it to increase revenue. So it's I think that's the main challenge for our side. We have a lot of interesting cases, we have a lot of data, but it's privacy matters all the time, even though we're super strict on GDPR and everything in Norway. I just example, I went around the country. We were delivering iPhones to all our workers, so we're on the same platform. And people are skeptic to getting like an iOS device because they're afraid of the tracking. So I think we need to shift the discussion about data and machine learning to possibilities, not like because we read about China and it's easy to use it the wrong way. But I think we should have a clear voice that this is a possibility for Norway to achieve something internationally with companies and also locally by using and utilizing data. It's not dangerous.
But here I think there's the two ends of the spectrum, isn't there? Because there's the side that's very skeptical and doesn't really know about the potential with ML and AI and such. And then you have the big companies who really like to do everything themselves as well, right? Yeah. And here I think is where you waste a lot of time, energy, resources and competence on building things that you can pull off the shelf or work with a trusted partner or with a startup. And I think that we can be much better at that. So enabling an ecosystem that allows everyone to float on the improvements and the deliveries of the other will really make Norway much more competitive globally.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have a huge public sector in Norway, and personally, I think that if we could utilize more of sort of the purchasing power from the public sector to really grow this kind of companies, that both the startups and other SMEs and other can sort of get a playground where solutions can be developed to a large extent. That would be useful, right?
Yeah, but I think that's really important, because also in public sector you have a lot of data, and a lot of this data is actually public, so it can be utilized, and it should be utilized much more than it already is. So we're working on a project now that we call the Data Factory, which is sort of to gather data from different sources and make it available to anybody who is actually want to apply that data, whether it be startups or SMEs or Cognite for that matter.
What kind of data is it?
Could be anything. I mean, it depends on what you get your hands on, but the public data that is available, Norway has very high quality public data from all public sectors. but it's not being used. And it's there. It's from mapping, it's anything from roads, it's traffic, it's you name it.
Hospitals, a lot of surveys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. But obviously data from different domains have different levels of sensitivity and so on.
It does.
But I think I think partnering is we don't focus enough about that, because everyone said, oh, let's do a project and let's hire a data scientist and instead when we partnered with SINTEF, we said that okay, we're quite good at building buildings and roads, we're quite bad at writing algorithms, but who's quite good at it? SINTEF's quite good at that. Let's do something with SINTEF, or it could be Cognite the next case. But I think you should look at the ecosystem and be good at what you're good at, and let the other ones be good at what they are good at.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's a very good point. But also going back to what you said at the beginning, Lars, I mean, education about this is super important. And we also need to realize that this is not a kind of a for tech people only. We need more business people coming in, learning about it. You talked about kind of educating management and so forth. I mean, it's the business cases that will create value for this technology. So don't let it be a kind of, oh, we do have some technological people working with this. It's not good enough. I mean, even you as a business person, you need to get involved, and it doesn't take that much. And there's a lot of good free resources. You at Digital Norway are providing a lot of good stuff. You guys have done something together, I think, in terms of industrial learning, and we have the element of
IDA. That's right.
Program together.
Right. The Industrial Digital Academy, which is free.
Right.
And used to upskill
so
people.
Many good opportunities to learn, and it's digitally free.
Very good. So we started a few minutes late, unfortunately, and we're running a little bit over time as well.
Digital challenge.
It's digital. But finally, I'd like all of you to sort of come up here. If you got like a pitch, do you have something you want to say to sort of get people involved, get people excited? Because I see so much excitement on your end. So Lars, what would you say to people you meet?
I think that people need to start trusting that there are challenges, but there are gold in the data. So let's start trusting data-driven decisions for the future. To keep it brief.
Very good. Paula?
So I would say that data is a fuel, and well-described business challenges is the compass, and the time is now. Just go for it.
Very good.
Well, I will say AI is a tool, and it's such as PowerPoint or Excel. I mean, business people, you need to get involved, and also if you want to be inspired, come to Startup Lab, and we'll showcase so many great companies you can partner up with.
Very inspirational.
Okay, now I'm concerned that I don't say anything new, but I think really companies, small and medium-sized enterprises, need to try out to apply new technologies, whether it be data or AI or machine learning, or it doesn't really matter, but start to explore. Find partners, because I really like what you said. You really need to partner with somebody, because all of this competence that you need, you can't have it in-house. There are experts around. Use them, because these challenges are too big for most companies. So you have to partner up, and you have to start working. You have to just get on with it. And don't think too large when you start. Start with something small and manageable, and then work out from there.
Very
Great
good.
advice.
Super. So that's what we have time for today. I want to thank you guys on the panel. It's been a great talk. I want to thank you guys who have watched us from your offices or from home. I think that you will probably find all of us on appropriate social media. Maybe inappropriate, I don't know. Anyway, this is the kind of stuff we're talking about every day. This is what we love and really want to sort of build more value from. So reach out to us if you have questions, comments, anything you want to talk about. I hope you'll have a great day and a great rest of Oslo Innovation Week. Bye.
Thanks, Anish.
Thanks.